Hey, how you doing? Dean from Gain here, and we probably can agree that water is the most vital element on Earth. It's the one thing that everyone needs and everyone consumes at this point, but there's a big disparity in what people, kind of water people drink. And when you think of water, you really have three options. You can drink from the tap, you can drink bottled water, and we're going to show you a third option today. So to break that down a little further, when you think of tap water today, you've probably seen a lot on the news. It's not always the healthiest options. There's a lot of pesticides, there's sediment, there's rust, there's extra chlorine. You hear countless stories of cities where there's diseases and there's actually narcotics within the water. So people are looking for another way. And some of them do reverse osmosis to their water, but what they find there is it's kind of kills everything out of the water, including all the healthy minerals. So that's not typically the answer either. So then they move on to a bottled water. And again, all the studies are showing there that bottled water, being that it's been in plastic for months and months, first of all, is not good for the earth or for the person. But secondly, it's a whole lot like tap water, and sometimes possibly even worse. So the third, what we're going to talk about today, is what we call Kangen water. And so I'll explain exactly what that is. And if you see this machine here, it's a water ionizer. And the company is called Magic. They're out of Japan, and they manufacturing these machines, and this is certified medical equipment in Japan. And so what the technology does, if you can see it, is inside this machine there's platinum dipped titanium plates, and this particular one has 7. We have others. Our flagship machine has 8 now. And what happens is when the water is hooked up to the faucet here, it goes to the machine, it runs over those plates, and it's actually shocking the water. You know, that's what the process of electrolysis is. And it's separating protons and electrons. So in essence, you're getting 5 types of water here. And so when you see these 2 tubes, this is where the proton heavy, what we call acidic water is. And coming from this side is where the negative or electron heavy alkaline water, where you drink. And I can just fire this up here. So you can see I've got 2 running, and this is a 9.5 pH Kangen water compared to the acidic water there. I'm actually going to put a little bit in here that we're going to use here in a second. So not only does it filter it and get that rust, sediments, extra chlorine out, but like I said, a bigger aspect of it and why it's considered a medical device is it's creating those 2 types of water, and it's adding something that those other 2 options don't have. And there's really 3 key distinctions that it creates of why this is the best choice of the 3 options we're talking about. So I want to break those down to make it more clear. So the first thing is what I mentioned, pH. So if you have an electron heavy alkaline water, the pH or potential hydrogen is much higher than in your tap water, than in your bottled waters. It's actually because, like I said, the separation, you have the electrons in there, something called hydroxyl ions that are going through that water, which give it about 30% more oxygen. So that's why it's sometimes called hydrogen water, or you'll hear it called negative water. So compare the things that we just talked about. Dasani is a very popular bottled water. I went ahead and filled up water from a standard tap, and then you just saw me throw some of our Kangen water here. And this is a pH tester. So we'll see what each pH level is for each one of them. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a few drops in here. And I'm sorry, there's something goes here. And I'm going to stir that up here a little bit. And notice the difference. We have a nice little color tree here, and I'll show you the measurements here. So this is really the color coding on the pH testers for each one. And we can bring in here and show you. So 9.5 on the pH level, which obviously represents health, is our Kangen water. If you look at this very yellow 5.0 pH, that was our Dasani, that was our bottled water that people think is healthier than normal. And then tap water, you can see, is a bluish, it's almost at 8.5. Green at 7 is neutral. So tap water by law has to be here to this color. And this is pretty typical because by law it's got to be there they actually add lye and other chemicals to make that happen. So again, it really neutralizes the effect of really what having that potential hydrogen means. So you can see a big difference. So that's the first distinction. The second distinction is what we call microclustering. So what microclustering means is water molecules come in clusters. You know, the average water molecule comes in a cluster of about 15 to 20 molecules per cluster. And when they go through this process of electrolysis here in this ionizer, that shrinks down to 5 to 6 molecules per cluster. So they get much smaller. So what that means is your body is going to assimilate it to your cells and tissues much better. You can detox and hydrate probably about 6 times more than you can with typical water. So to give you an example of that, I've got a tea bag in here.
Kangen Water 9.5.
And we're going to fire our machine back up. I'm just going to fill this guy up. And give her a second here. As you can see, I don't know if you could see that, you can see it instantly, the tea is coming out of the bag. You can see the coloration there. That doesn't happen with typical tap water. Obviously this happens because they're smaller clusters, they're soaking into the bag, because when you normally make tea, you heat it. And what happens when you heat it is you're making the molecules smaller as they soak into the bag, and it's just an amazing thing. As you can see, that's already made tea here in 2 seconds. Put another way, if you think of this tennis racket here as the cells and tissues of your body, and you've got 15 to 20 molecules per cluster, it's not always going to go into every cell and tissues. That's when people get bloated, they're swishing water. Not every tissue gets it. But if you were to shrink those molecules in your cells and tissues, you can see that your body ends up getting the hydration and nutrients that it needs. So microclustering is a huge, huge thing. It's one of the first things that people notice and feel is they don't feel as full. They feel their body can absorb it faster. They can drink it a lot better, and hence they end up drinking more, because you're supposed to drink half your body weight in ounces of water. So the third step that really gives us a big distinction with Kangen Water is the antioxidant capability. So I'm just going to bring a big glass here. We'll take our typical bottle of acidic water here. And what this thing here is called is a toniolite. And this toniolite really measures antioxidant capability in electrolytes. If you know what electrolyte is, it's just minerals with a charge. And what's funny is this bottle of water says that even added minerals. So calcium, sodium, magnesium, potassium with a charge is what electrolytes are. And antioxidants are really measuring if something has a charge or not. So what we mentioned earlier, this is called negative water. It's electron heavy, so that means it should have a charge. And so what this is a light bulb. And if something has electricity going through it, it obviously would show a charge. So if it has electricity, it has antioxidative capabilities or antioxidants. It also has electrolytes. So let's do a compare and contrast to the typical bottle of water people buy today. And I put my probe in. You see that it's barely, there's a little glow. So there's probably a few minerals in there, but not much into it. By contrast, we'll look at Kangen and look at that nice, steady, bright light there. So I think there's no question there that the amount of electricity is there. The extra pH gives it more oxygen. The electron activity gives it more antioxidative capability, and the fact that it's microclustered, you can soak up more. So those are the 3 key distinctions of why Kangen really should be the water of choice. And if it sounds great to you, click the button below and get your first one sent to you right away. If you have more questions, scroll down a little bit further, put your contact information, and ask to be contacted, and we'll get with you. Thank you very much.